And we get it rolling on the Krueger Show Saturday, 9:14 on the West Coast, 14 minutes after noon on the East Coast. Welcome to the Krueger Show on a Saturday. The coach will be in the house. We'll talk a little Niners. We'll talk a lot of Niners. And, of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by Marin Auto Glass, 415-883-3030, marinautoglass.com. And we're brought to you as well by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, and they will match you up to your first $100. Thank you to Underdog Fantasy. Thank you to Marin Auto Glass, and thank you to Pig and a Pickle. And we're going to head to the Super Bowl this week. We've got two sponsors of Super Bowl week that we'll tell you about as of Monday, in addition to our regular sponsors, and we appreciate everybody who comes out and decides they want to sponsor the Krueger Show. And right now, we are absolutely blowing up. It's been the biggest week of our channel's existence. Hope you guys are enjoying the content as we sit here today at 9:15 in the morning on February the 3rd. You know, we are coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the Krueger Show. The Krueger Show started, I think, right around March 1st of 2022. So we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary. And as we're sitting here today, as last night we just passed 37,000 subscribers, now at 3753, just 53 new subscribers in the middle of the month, 4,000 new subscribers in the last 4 weeks alone. We've had 4 million views of our videos and live streams in the last 28 days alone, and close to 360,000 watch hours of our content. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to all you guys for supporting the channel and making it what it is. We are off to Vegas in just a couple of days. We're going to try to track down a couple big interviews before we leave, but we will be in Las Vegas all week long. Well, I guess no, Tuesday we head to Vegas, and we'll be there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then I will be coming back to the Bay to watch the Super Bowl with my 14-year-old on the couch and do what all of us are going to do. Get a bunch of chicken wings and, who knows, whatever, what the wife wants to barbecue or whatever. But we will have whatever. We'll have some people over, I'm sure, and we will celebrate, hopefully, the Niners' 6th Lombardi. And I feel good. We'll get the coach in here. We'll get his thoughts on it. He's just he was running Hannibal, and so he's running 15 minutes behind. So he'll join us in a bit. A couple things, though, I want to get to. I was in Santa Clara yesterday, and by the way, today is the Senior Bowl. Really fired up for the Senior Bowl. It is 10 a.m. that game starts. So in about 40 minutes, the Senior Bowl starts. The college football all-star game from South Alabama Stadium there. It's the Reese's Senior Bowl. And I've been watching some of the practices. I also watched the East-West Shrine game last night. And, man, there are some really good players in the East-West Shrine game, including Frank Gore's kid. Now, I can't believe that I'm going to say this, but I think if I were the Niners, they got a bunch of picks in the draft. Frank Gore Jr., obviously you don't need a running back, but Frank Gore Jr. is probably going to be a day 3 pick. He may be even a mid to late day 3 pick. I'm thinking round 5, 6, or 7. He had a touchdown run in the All-Star game. He looks just like Frank Gore. I mean, just like Frank Gore. Frank Gore was there on the sidelines yelling and screaming at him, too. You could see the kid was getting annoyed. But Frank is obviously a future Hall of Fame Niner. Great player with the Niners, and he's now in the Niner organization. He's got a role in the front office somewhere in the personnel side of things. why not grab his kid? His kid, I mean, the longevity on Frank Gore was unbelievable. The guy tore both the ACLs in college at Miami, and then he played forever. So, I mean, I'd be very interested in his kid, because if his kid's anything close to him as far as longevity, you're buying a car that's going to last you like 350,000 miles. But he looked great. And then I thought Christian McCaffrey's brother, Luke, has looked really, really good. And he's probably going to be a 6th or 7th round pick. And then Jerry Rice's kid looks better than both of them. I mean, Jerry Rice's kid is really fantastic. The USC wide receiver, he's got good size. He scores touchdowns. You can tell he takes the game as seriously as Jerry took it. Now, Jerry's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of a player. I mean, let's not make any mistakes about that. I'm not saying he's Jerry Rice, but Rice's kid is legit. I mean, I absolutely would love to have his kid on the Niners. As I said, 6'4", great route runner, terrific hands, scored a bunch of touchdowns this year. He's good. I mean, he really is exciting to watch. Brendan is his name, Brendan Rice. So, I mean, he's not a burner. He's kind of like Jerry. He's a good size receiver with great hand-eye coordination. And, he's not going to run 4.3, but he's at that size, at 6'4", 210 or whatever he is. He's good. I mean, he's like a 3rd round pick. If I were the Niners, I would grab those guys. I mean, all 3 of those guys. I'd like to have all 3 of those guys. You really need to spend your picks on your line, right? Your D line, your O line, corner, maybe safety. They have other needs besides running back and wide receiver. But man, how do you pass on Gore's kid? How do you pass on McCaffrey's brother? How do you pass on Rice's kid? I mean, seriously, all 3 of those guys in my mind would be day 3 locks. And I would even consider taking Brendan Rice at the end of day 2. Raphael 562 Niners jumping in with get Rice, Gore Jr., and CMC's little bro. Exactly. And it's funny, Christian, I asked Christian a couple weeks ago about what it would, hey, man, do you watch your brother? And he's giving, it was hilarious, too, because he's at his locker, and he's giving relatively short answers to a lot of the media questions. How you feeling here? Yeah, I'm doing good. What do you think of Brock? Yeah, Brock's great. And then I'm like, hey, Christian, you watch your brother much at Luke at Rice? And he's like, oh, yeah, I never miss a game. I really think he could make it in this league. He's got everything it takes. He's got size. He's got speed. He's got this. He's got that. He used to play quarterback. He's bigger than me and this and that. And he's like, it would be a dream to play with him. He just went on and on and on. And very cool, because his brother it's not Christian. Christian's a 1st-round pick. His brother's not a 1st-round pick. I can tell you that by watching him. But we'll see what he runs in Indy. And if he runs a decent time, it's probably going to determine where he goes, because he's a very productive wide receiver. He knows how to play the position. Football is important to him. He would be a very nice, safe day 3 pick, and to have McCaffrey's brother. And then, Gore's kid definitely would be a phenomenal backup in the running back core. Eventually could be a starter. Rice's kid, I think, would be a phenomenal player to get, because I think he's ready to play and contribute and produce right now. He's a very polished player. And then, if McCaffrey was thrilled that you got his brother in the 7th round, I'd use a 7th round pick on his brother, especially in a deep draft like this. So, Callie Young says, Larry, did you see any good offensive line prospects? No question. And I did a video on this earlier in the week. Just watching some of the practices, there were 3 offensive tackles. There's a bunch that are going in the 1st round, right? I was talking to Trent Williams the other day at his locker about Tyler Guyton, the Oklahoma kid, who's just 6'7", 325, super athletic, really talented guy. And Trent's watched him a lot. Trent's a do everything, man. Trent's they start shooting the ball on the hoop in the locker room. He's the best shooter. I mean, the guy, there's like nothing he can't do. And he's watched a lot of these college football offensive tackles. And we talked a lot about Guyton, and Guyton's he's a throwback, man. He's tough. Now, I don't know that he's going to be there when the Niners pick, but here are 3 offensive tackles that I love in this draft that are not going in the first round. Okay. One is Javon Foster from University of Missouri, who was in the senior. He's in the Senior Bowl today. I think he wears 76. He was 3-year starter at Missouri, 6'5", 310 pounds, 35-inch arms. I think he's got the wrestling background, great athlete, incredible grip strength. I mean, this guy just grabs you in the interior and you're not going anywhere. He's got lateral quickness. He's, 41 college starts, the captain of the team. They ran kind of an RPO heavy zone blocking scheme at Missouri, so he'd fit in. He's probably going to wind up going in probably the second round, maybe late second round. So I think the Niners definitely could get him in the second round if they wanted, maybe even round 3. 41 starts, 39 at left tackle, 2 at right tackle. So I really like Javon Foster. He had great practices, but I really loved him in the season. Just a very athletic guy who looks like he could probably be about 330 with a year of like building up his strength, and he's got great quickness. So I really like him quite a bit. Then there's the kid from Michigan, Ladarius Henderson, who was the Arizona State transfer, 6'4", 320 pounds. He's from Waxahachie, Texas. Made 10 starts this year at left tackle. He was first team All Big Ten, voted on by the coaches. So the coaches really like him. He was great in the Nebraska game. He was amazing against Michigan State. And this is another guy, athletic, has his degree already, smart guy. He played some left guard as well as tackle. Once again, 35-inch arms, great foot speed. I mean, they use this guy to pull out and destroy people in the run game. This guy blocked for Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards this year, just as a mauler in the run game. Just super incredible, prospect. And they're saying he's going to go in round 2 or 3. So remember that one, Ladarius Henderson. And then the other guy that really stood out was Christian Jones from the University of Texas, 6'6", 320. And this guy's really interesting in that another guy, really, really smart, captain of his high school football team, didn't even play high school football until his junior year. He was a soccer player. So he was a converted soccer player. He's from the Houston, Texas area. And the guy's got footwork kind of like a soccer player. I mean, he's 6'6", 330, 320, 330 in that range, but he's got awesome feet. And that's what you're looking for. So he went to John Runyon High School, I believe. And just a really, really, or I should say didn't begin playing high school football till he was a junior, but I really liked him too. He won a lot of the one-on-ones. That to me, the best thing to watch during Senior Bowl week is the one-on-ones. And Christian Jones from Texas just stonewalled in the one-on-one. So he was really, really impressive. So there's a bunch of guys. Fuaga Talieisi from Oregon State is a total beast, but he's going to probably go in the middle of the first round. Guyton from Oklahoma is going in the first round. Alt from Notre Dame is blue chipper. He's going in the top 10. Kingsley Sumatea from BYU is a crazy, freaky athlete, a little undersized, but he's going in round 1. Barton from Duke, who can play everywhere on the line, he's going in round 1. So, it's a really good tackle draft, and the Niners were on hand for the practices. So I would imagine they're going to be aggressive in going after an offensive tackle. My guess is the Niners go offensive line, maybe offensive tackle, defensive line in the first couple rounds. You don't think of the defensive line as a need because they've got a loaded front now on paper, but there's 6 49ers on that defensive line that are going to be free agents. So they're all basically potentially leaving. Armstead may retire. Bose is obviously here. Chase Young's a free agent. The way he's played the last couple of games effort-wise, I doubt he'll be back. Givens is a free agent. You could say the same thing about him. Kinlaw is a free agent. Randy Gregory, they've got to decide if they're going to pick up his option. I think they've got an option on him at like 14 mil. Beal. So the only guys they have signed up beyond this year are Bosa, Hargrave, Beal, and that's it. Joseph Day is also a free agent. So there's gonna be a lot of turnover on the Niner defensive line and on the Niner offensive line potentially, or at least there's going to be some problem. I would imagine the Niners' high priority is to draft a tackle and to start at right tackle instead of Colton McKivitz. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's to me what this whole thing has been pointing to all off season. It's a great offensive tackle draft, and they need an offensive tackle. So. And there's good ones, plenty of good ones beyond the guys that I've mentioned. That's how deep a class it really is. All right, let's talk a little bit about the matchup. I was in Ninerland yesterday, and I thought one of the most compelling things was John Lynch talking about the Niners' lack of hustle. And I'm gonna share the screen and let you hear that. This is pretty good stuff here. I'm really surprised that we're talking about this, but I brought it up to Shanahan, and it's like you can blame me for bringing it up, or you can blame Chase Young and those guys for putting it on film to begin with and for us to see. But here is, and Shanahan obviously didn't like it. Wilks said he was embarrassed. I mean, Wilks yesterday was incredible at the podium. I couldn't believe how direct and honest and forthright he was. Not that he's not always that way, but I mean, he basically he said, it's unacceptable. We have to play every down. It was embarrassing. So that's pretty strong words. Here's Lynch yesterday. We'll let you hear what Lynch had to say.
Yesterday, Fred Warner and Kyle both talked about a concern about the lack of effort on the defense. Do you sense that there's an awareness about that going forward this week?
Yeah, effort's a non-negotiable. I mean, that's one of our core values, and I believe that in my heart of hearts. It's something. We've got 4 Hall of Famers that represent the defense I played in Tampa, and if you ask every one of us that played on that defense, what was our calling card? It starts with effort, and that being a non-negotiable. So those things have been addressed. You got one game. I really would be shocked if we saw that again. And sometimes that comes. I mean, there's excuses for it. But they're just that. They're excuses, and that has to be non-negotiable. Play your heart out, and then we've got a lot of good players, a lot of good depth, and you can get. So those aren't plays that we're proud of. Those players are proud of. It's been addressed, and I'd be real surprised if I saw it.
No.
So there you go. And that, I mean, it's a topic. I mean, it's the NFC Championship game. It was shocking to see guys kind of loafing on the backside. And Lynch spoke to it. Kyle said, hey, I'll give Kyle credit. When I asked him about it, he didn't dodge. He wasn't like, no, that didn't happen, or you didn't see that the right way, or you thought you saw that, but that's not what you saw. He owned it. He's like, no, that's not our culture, and we didn't like that. But the fact that you had to kind of talk about it internally. And, Fred Warner broke the team down on the field the other day, as he always does. But instead of talking for 90 seconds or whatever, it seemed like he talked for like 3 or 4 minutes. I asked Fred about keeping things, keeping guys accountable. And does he do that? And who does that? And that kind of thing. And he had kind of an interesting answer. I'm going to let you listen to this one. This is interesting as well. This is Fred Warner from a couple days ago.
Play with a ton of passion, and you can see Fred, you and Dre play with a ton of passion, and you can see it on the film. If you're watching that film and you see somebody going half speed or loafing, are you the kind of guy that gets in a guy's face and says, hey, that's not acceptable, that's not our standard?
I think it's the thing that is more meaningful than just trying to get on specific guys. I think is being the guy that shows consistency and is the truest example of exactly what we're looking for. I can look at plays in this past game where I wasn't fully giving my 100% effort, and it's like, who am I to sit there and talk down on somebody else when I wasn't all the way there. You know what I'm saying? So I'm always trying to look at myself first in the mirror and make sure that I'm the example. Today, when we're out there to practice, how do you look in practice right now? Like, how do I look, and what example am I giving to my guys for what we're trying to look like on Sunday? It's not just going to happen just because we talk about it. It's got to be something that you do day in and day out, and we have the opportunity today.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I was a little surprised by that. I thought he might take a different approach there, but he's like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to point fingers. I'm not going to, in any way say, speak harshly of it. He's like, I'm just going to go out there, focus on myself, and try to set an example by the speed that I play at, and then everybody can kind of go from there and copy my example. That's what, and I think that's what that's definitely a good way to lead. And I asked Nick Bosa, I said, who's the tone setter in your room? And he's like, well, Chris Kasarik, Daryl Tapp, Eric Armstead, and myself. So if the Niner defensive line doesn't go hard in this game, they won't win. I mean, it's as simple as that. But you heard Lynch. He said, it's been addressed. It's non-negotiable, and I'd be shocked if we see it again. So, that kind of almost guarantees that we're going to see the 49ers really flying around on Super Bowl Sunday. And that's exciting because the Niners are the most talented team. And if they're flying around on that defensive line, I'll take my chances. If you can promise me that all the guys that they have on their defense are going to fly around to their highest energy level on Super Bowl Sunday, I feel good about their chances. Now, I realize it's Mahomes, and it's a great defense, and there's no question. I mean, I don't know if it's a great defense, but it's a very good defense. That's kind of one of the questions I want to get to with Coach today, as well as exactly how good of a defense are we talking about for the Chiefs? I know it's a better defense than what the Niners have faced thus far, but how good is it really? Obviously Chris Jones is a monster, and he can wreck shop on anybody and kind of ruin your day. And Bolton is a tremendous player as well. There's no question about that. But I mean, is this going to be a defense that is totally dominant and shuts the Niners down, or is this a defense that you can pick on in certain spots? They lost Charles Omenihu, and losing Omenihu is a major, major loss. He was a very good Niner, but he was even better this year in Kansas City. So that's the thing. I mean, there's no question that Omenihu is a major talent. And for them to lose him to the knee injury in this last game is a crusher for them. Looking at the Chiefs' profile, this is what it looks like. Niners went 12-5 this year, first in the NFC West. Chiefs won 11-6, first in the AFC West. Niners averaged almost 30 a game, 28.9 points a game. It was third best in the NFL. Chiefs averaged 21.8 points per game. That was 15th in the NFL. So, what stands out to me when you're looking at their profile is that, the Niners have the third rushing offense. Kansas City has the 19th rushing offense. Why? Because they tend to pass the ball a lot with Mahomes and Reed. They like to throw the ball. They're 19th in rush offense, Kansas City is. Then when you look at defense, you flip it over to defense. These are really good defenses. I mean, Kansas City is second overall in both points and yards. They only give up 17.3 points a game. They only give up 289.8 yards per game. 49ers are third in points allowed, right there with Kansas City. I said 17.3 for KC. 17.5 is what the Niner defense allows. But they're eighth in total defense, more yards, 303.9. That's eighth best in the NFL. Then when you look at it closely, though, they're the opposites. The Niners' run D is third, and their pass D is 14th. The Chiefs' run D now, and when I say third, that's a little deceiving, right? Because that's 89.7 yards per game. Their yards per carry average is much worse than third best in the league. Kansas City's defense is second in the league, but their run defense is 17th, and their pass defense is 4th. So it looks like on paper, especially since the Chiefs have 57 sacks, second most in the NFL, that it is much more advantageous to run McCaffrey, Mitchell, Mason, Debo, whoever you want to run, just to run the ball at Kansas City in this matchup. So I'm looking forward to exactly seeing what the game plan looks like. It has been installed. Shanahan indicated that. The players indicated that. Brock talked about it yesterday. The game plan's been installed. So they've already installed their plan. They're going to try to they'll tinker with it next week over a week of practice in Las Vegas. But Shanahan said, hey, you know what? I've been to the Super Bowl before. It's really, really important that we get our work done before we get on the bird and go to Las Vegas with all the distractions and so on and so forth. But I would imagine it is a run-heavy plan with a ton of Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey is as good as any player in the league this year, and the Chiefs give up 113.2 rushing yards per game, 17th in the league. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really, really interesting. The other thing I think that's interesting is where these teams rank in turnover differential. The Niners were 5th in the league. They were plus 10. The Chiefs were 28th in the NFL, minus 11. So that what has been fueling Kansas City's unbelievable run here in the playoffs and late in the year, Mahomes is taking care of the ball. He's not turning it over. He hasn't thrown a pick in weeks. To me, that's the key. Can Bosa and the 49er D-line put some heat on Mahomes? Can the Niners pick him off once or twice? If they can, I think they can win this game, maybe even comfortably. All right, we welcome in the coach. Who's with us? What's up, Coach?
What's going on, Larry? How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. How's your morning going or your early afternoon there in the East?
It is Super Bowl week. It's coming up. This is the last day before we can say it. This is it. Tomorrow it is officially Super Bowl week. So it's coming. I'm excited. I've had a chance to sit back and look at, let it soak in that we do have the Chiefs as our opponent in the Super Bowl. And
what do you think?
It's destiny. At first I wanted Baltimore because I was a little I was honed in on the season, right? I was too galvanized about exactly what happened to us, and they did beat us quite handedly. But for how this entire saga has gone with the team, with the regime, of what we've had to do to win, to actually become a real team that was respected across the league in 2019, galvanize around Jimmy, have to pull away from Jimmy, get Trey, put our hopes in Trey, then have basically a civil war. Then Brock comes along, and he's been lights out ever since. And that's something that I've been saying as of late. Just enjoying Brock's maturation process is just it's neat, man, to be able to see where he's come from. And I brought this up about all of the people that were a little late to the party on Brock, is that even now, if you're just getting on board, it's still a hell of a ride. And you can't be anything but happy for him. I've seen all of the media outlets cover him and his mom. I saw him talking after the game, and it's a dope atmosphere. And I think that we're ready to go get our destiny. It's pretty much hand in glove. I feel like it's time for us to go beat these boys.
The only way to do it is to make sure you play hard. And that was one of the topics this week down there. And I want you to hear Wilks, because Wilks addressed it yesterday, and man, he just was so serious about it. Here he is. This is from Raj, RSF 49ers, who put this out earlier. Let me see if I can. Yeah, there we go. Here's Steve Wilks from yesterday.
I think you really have to ask them individually. Collectively, as a team, I can tell you, as a defense, it's unacceptable. All right, and we talked about that. I wish I could tell these guys on play 4 on play 27, this is what's going to happen. You don't know. So we got to make sure that we play every down as if it's going to be the difference in the ball game. And you could see on those two particular plays, it wasn't to our standard. And those guys understand and know that. And quite honestly, it was embarrassing.
That's pretty strong talk. I mean, quite honestly, it was embarrassing. What do you think about? What do you think about? You know what we're talking about, Coach. We're talking about the Jahmyr Gibbs touchdown. And before you weigh in, let me throw this one too for people who didn't see this. But you know, I had a chance to talk to Shanahan, and that was earlier in the week, and I posed the question to him, which may have gotten this narrative going, and I really don't take any pride in that because I really didn't want there to be any controversy in any way. But at the same time, when I saw the film, I was like, gosh, this has got to be addressed. I mean, this is just ridiculous. You can't go at this speed and have it be okay.
Right.
Here it is right here.
Okay.
Here's
Through
Shanahan.
Tenure here. Kyle, your team plays really hard, I think, in all three phases of the game through your tenure here. When you watch that film against Detroit and you watch that second quarter halfback toss to Gibbs, what did you think of the pursuit effort of your defensive lineman on that play? And is that in line with your culture here?
No, not at all. I mean, that's kind of what I was referring to on, I think, our conference call on Monday. But it's, you know, and I know it looked bad on the clip that you guys have and stuff, but it's, no, it's not our culture. We don't want to have one play like that. I think we had about 2 to 3 in that game, which is too much for us. We don't want to ever have one, but it wasn't just the D-line. There was a few backside people who weren't going, and they're expecting someone else to make the tackle. And whenever you're expecting someone else to make the tackle, bad things happen.
All right, Coach, you know, you coach the game, you're around the game, you understand the norms. Big deal, no deal, little deal. What do you think? I mean, you know, I asked the question as direct as I could. I'll give Kyle credit. He didn't dodge, and he basically said, hey, guy, you know, he put it, he didn't call out anybody by name, but he's like, guys weren't going on the back end on that, on the backside. And everybody, and he described exactly what it was, which was guys all thought somebody else was going to make the play, but you can't make that assumption, especially in playoff football, especially in a conference championship game. What did you think of the play? What did you think of what they've said about it?
I thought it was unfortunate because when you see stuff like that, then you understand that the culture is a little bit disjointed. And the reason why I say that is because there are players, men on our team who deserve to have a pragmatic approach about football, right? Like understanding the top down perspective of, you know, how things are going to be done during games, you know, down and distance, how to, you know, corral their effort on certain downs. I mean, that happens. I got to be honest with you. I played with guys and coached guys where they're so good that we don't need them to be 100% tilted every play because of what they do for us, right? There's guys like that. However, that rubs off on guys who should be going to the echo of the whistle every down. And to be honest with you, this is something that you and I have talked about personally. We've talked about the emergence of some of these players that they think they're Nick Bosa because they play with Nick Bosa. Or they think they're as good as Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner because they play with them. But you ain't them. And you got to play every down. And we know specifically who we're talking about with as far as our new acquisition from Washington. We know who he is, but this is something that we have to understand isn't necessarily of our culture off rip, right? This guy came in from another organization, and I don't know how many of you guys that are in the chat now, but we threw up the tape just to see exactly what type of player we were getting. We hadn't seen Chase Young all year. And I hadn't paid attention to him. And when we threw up the tape, and for those of you in the chat who were there with me that day, we saw the same thing. We saw it. It was on tape. I brought it up. jogging on field, half effort, not necessarily playing to the echo of the whistle, anticipating other teammates getting tackles. So you let up, going to the ball carrier. I mean, these are all things that bad teams do, right? And there's a little bit of a silver lining to it, is because it stuck out, right? It wasn't the norm. Everybody noticed it, and it translated to the locker room, right? I can see if this is something that we were talking about and, we got coach speak, that would be alarming, right? If we brought this up and, Kyle just kind of like swept this under the rug. Things happen. We're moving on to the next player. Coach Wilks has said, well, I thought our run defense was absolutely perfect. Nothing happened. No, it's going from the top down in the organization, which lets you know that it matters, right? All three levels have talked about it. Defensive coordinator talks about it. Head coach has brought it up, and the GM brought it up. It's an issue. It's something that we cannot have. And, we can get into the obvious. Why are we talking about this during this point of the season, right? If you can't get motivated to play 100% for these games, I can't help you. I can't help you as a football player. So, like Kyle said, it wasn't just Chase, right? It was Ambry Thomas. It was Gibson, right? On some instances, it's been Fred throughout the year. In some instances, it's been Diamador Lenore at times. Like everybody has got. Sometimes it's been Javon Hargraves. There was a couple of weeks where he looked a little not up to snuff, right? Other games, sometimes it may be Randy Gregory. So that's one thing that I do like about Kyle, is that because of the game and the eyes of the game, yeah, it's something that everybody wants to necessarily pin on Chase or those singular plays. But Larry, we've been talking about this throughout the year. What's the number one thing? It's like, Coach, why didn't you have the guys going so far this year in the league? It's like, because I had real thoughts about our ability to stop the run and run the ball. I've been saying that all year. And it's been coming up team by team by team. But like we also admitted, we can't get teams that actually get us in the vacuum where they can really run the ball on us and expose that, especially when our offense is having a good day. So it's something that's been persistent throughout the year. But when you start seeing it on this stage, you start to understand that it needs to change immediately. And those are some of the things, honestly, I wanted to touch on with Coach Wilks. We talk about a lot of the adjustments that Coach Wilks has to make throughout the defense. And the trend for this year has been second half adjustments for Coach Wilks, right? Get him into the second half, he'll start making adjustments. But to be honest with you, from a coaching perspective, sometimes you can't coach effort. You can't. I can't put you in the right position. How do you coach a missed tackle? How do you coach somebody jogging to somebody? How do you coach that up? Right.
Well, to me, it's a culture that has to be set by the players. I'll tell you right now, on Kansas City's defense, Chris Jones sets their culture.
Yes.
He is. If you don't play, he's going to kick your ass. It's as simple as that. He's going to challenge you on the bench, and he's going to kick your ass. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's the truth. Chris Jones is the fuel, is the engine. Watch if they fall behind in any big game. That guy is chewing everybody out on the sidelines.
Yeah.
When the Niners, were in their heyday, Ronnie set that tone. Haley set that tone. Bryant Young set that tone. This is how hard we play. Tim McDonald set that tone. You have guys who are tone-setting players, and that's the only thing. Is like, I think if you said to me, who are the Niners tone setters on defense? Well, Bosa's their best player, but he's very soft-spoken. Warner and Greenlaw set the tone by the speed at which and the passion with which they play at. But they don't have. I mean, Armstead's a major leader, but he's more soft-spoken. To me, they could have. I think they miss Jimmy Ward. I think they miss Mosley. I think they miss those guys in the back end who were just so physical, and so they'd fly up and it was like life and death. And so I think they kind of missed that a little bit on the back end. And, that's why I kind of like Jair Brown, because I think he's potentially that kind of a player where he's going to hurl his body around and set the tone and be super physical. But they've lost. I think their struggles against the run are legitimate. And I think their problem is that they don't have an interior player that consistently eats up blocks inside. Kinlaw is the best at it, but like Hargrave's not that guy. So
Sebastian Joseph Day is not that guy.
Sebastian Joseph Day is not that guy. Kevin Givens is not that guy.
Not that guy.
So what happens is interior offensive linemen climb to the second level and pick off Warner and pick off Greenlaw, and then guys on the outside zone cut back inside, and there's nobody home. There's nobody there because everybody's blocked. So it's like it's a real problem. And then I don't know that you can be corrected. They're just going to have to. They're going to have to be have the mindset of get to the football. But the reality is they lost Aziz, Ebukam, Amenihue, Jimmy Ward, Emmanuel Mosley. What do those guys all have in common? They're all damn good against the run.
And then another thing that you have to look at is going up against the Chiefs. I kind of feel like the new how the league goes in trends every year, right? And then what happened is that everybody started trending to 11 personnel, right? Everybody wanted to go 3-by-1, 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 almost phasing out the fullback, right? But now I'm starting to see the Chiefs, their new mode of going after teams now is going in 12 personnel. Well, when you go in 12 personnel, you got to throw Oren Burks on the field
with the two tight ends, and the Niners would go at the base.
Yeah. So now we're looking at a whole situation where we got another guy, a special teams guy, where that guy used to be Aziz Al-Shaair. That used to be the guy that we used to throw in the field. So now we got to see. I do have a feeling that the Chiefs, they're going to try to give us a taste of our own medicine. They're going to try to slow us down, throw those tight ends on the ground, and pound us. I think they are.
And the question is, can the Niners defend the run at the point? Baltimore couldn't, and Baltimore's got Queen and Roquan and 360-pound Michael Pierce, and they still ran Pacheco between the tackles in the lower red zone. And then the Niners, if you run to the edges, and you can climb to the second level and block Greenlaw and Warner, you can make big plays there. So that's where it starts. I mean, can the 49ers stop Isaiah Pacheco? If they can't, and Mahomes has play action available all day and the ability to run, it's going to be very difficult to defend.
I think Kyle
take away Pacheco.
I agreed, Larry. I think Kyle's basic, his number one mantra for this game, I feel as though is spot on. I know we're kind of going hardcore on the effort, because of the last plays that we saw basically over all of the playoffs. But really, I feel like what Kyle was really trying to harken on was the stamina, the constant pressure that the defensive line is going to have. And I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs are going to make sure that we keep at least 4 to 5 down linemen, and they're betting on the fact that our offensive line is going to beat down their trenches, our trenches. I feel like they have a better offensive line than we have a D line. I feel like when you look at our D line, and when we have trouble, it's in traditional run fits. It's when teams just go downhill on us. That's it. When you get exotic, you want to go left, you want to go east and west on us, you want to start running to the sideline, screens, we're that defense, right? We love the pursuit. We love the chase, right? We're that defense. But when you start going downhill on us, where there's really no pageantry or really any trickery or foolery or what we're doing, we're just kicking out. We're playing duo. We're gonna double that 3 technique, all right? And then we're gonna come off on a 2-way go on Fred or Dre, and we're gonna do it on the backside, and we're gonna keep doing it until you show us you have the technique to stop it. I feel like there's a huge element of this game that's going to be not really about the X's and O's, but more about the Jimmies and Joes. They're going to try to put a hat on us.
Well, and Pacheco runs about as hard as anybody in football. So
Yeah.
I mean, and good luck. If you don't bring it, you're gonna get a knee in the chest. I mean, he's a high knee guy. He reminds me a lot of Roger Craig. I mean, there's just a lot of energy in the way he runs the football. And he's he's a power back. And you're right. They're gonna have to stop him. They're gonna have to stop Kelsey in the red zone. I asked Mooney Ward yesterday what he thought of Rashee Rice, and he said he reminds him of Debo. He said, yeah, he reminds me of Debo. He says you got to be real physical with him. He said reminds me of Debo a little bit. We just need to be physical with him all game long. So, and then the other thing here is the Niners do have the right kinds of pieces to potentially slow down Travis Kelce. But Kelsey and Mahomes are absolutely in lockstep. So they know where, they just know Mahomes knows, where Kelsey is. Kelsey knows where. They just have so many reps together that it's a very difficult combination to stop.
Oh my God. Cosmo's last pick is exactly how I feel about Isaiah Pacheco. I feel like he's Ricky Waters. I do. He does. He reminds me of Ricky Waters.
Yeah.
Sudden, low center of gravity.
He doesn't catch the ball.
He doesn't. He's nowhere near the receiver Ricky was. But that almost kind of like, it's like Ricky Waters started the running style, and I feel like Frank Gore perfected it. Like that high knees, center lower gravity, sudden cuts. Not a slasher, but a cutter. Right? They still gonna always stay vertical no matter what.
What do you think? Are you satisfied with what the 49ers look like defensively in this matchup outside of the effort question? I mean, obviously you got to play with effort, but what do you think of the matchup for the 49er defense against Kansas City? I mean, Mahomes this year, showed that he was not just absolutely perfect. He was a guy that had some struggles throughout the year, but he has gotten it going late in the year, and he's playing at a really high level suddenly. But I mean, you go back to earlier in the year, this guy's 17th in the league this year in completion percentage versus pressure, 48.6. He had 14 interceptions, but he's had 0 in the last 20 quarters, the last 5 games. Can the Niners get a pick against Mahomes, or is Mahomes doing something in the last 5 games that maybe he wasn't doing earlier in the year?
Well, one thing that I got fooled with is I started looking at the last game that we played them 5 years ago in 2019. And what frustrated me about that is that I automatically tried to start marrying over the performances of, well, we had Mahomes down 2 picks. We had him down 2 picks. He put up 21 in the 4th, and our defense was game. I feel like he's not the same quarterback he was the last time we faced him. I will say that they're taking more of a page out of our book, in my opinion, as far as not being an offense that tries to always fit a square peg in a round hole because of this is what they do. But they've become smart enough and actually more savvy enough to be able to take whatever a defense is giving them on that particular day. I mean, what's emblematic of that is that they're not necessarily a strong running team, right? They've had multiple games where they've tried to get their passing game off the ground, but this group of guys that they haven't been up to snuff. It wasn't until they got to the playoffs until they actually started activating their running game. And I didn't even see this uptick of them being able to run the ball this strong. And you might want to say, yeah, it's the playoffs and they're just trying to play because they know their backs are against the wall. But you can't fake the type of running game that they've had and the games that they've played. I mean, they've had 2 hard road games and a home game. And they've seen Miami, Buffalo, and the Ravens. And they ran the ball on the Ravens. And they consistently ran the ball on the Ravens. And don't be fooled by yards. Don't be fooled by the box stat. Because running the ball is all about the effort and the intent to know that you still will run the ball on this team and you can get yards, right? You don't need to run 100 yards in today's league. You don't need to run for 100 yards to sustain the run. You just need to run the ball hard and strong enough to be able to keep the defense honest for you to get to what you want to get to. That's what the Chiefs can do. I feel as though that the biggest thing, if we go back and look at the last game, we talked about Reynolds being the kind of like their big receiver that's left out on the end, and we're going to see Reynolds on Ambry Thomas. I feel like we're going to see again with Justin Watson on Ambry Thomas. Valdez-Scantling and Mooney are going to be locked up this pretty much the whole game. In the same way we counted on Amon-Ra St. Brown to be locked up on Demo, it's going to be Rashee Rice and Demo, right? So I felt good with how Demo played against Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown I don't think Rashee Rice is better than Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? No. So if you're going to talk about a player that mimics Deebo Samuel, you would look at Amon-Ra St. Brown in some instances, and we more than had a good game. And I didn't feel as though that we were completely out of our depth with Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially when Deommodore Lenoir was on him. So I don't worry about him and Rashee Rice going up against each other. Now, where I do worry is the Chiefs trying to single out Jair Brown and Travis Kelce. It's going to have to be a hell of a game again from Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. And they're up to the task. I mean, Sam Laporta had a good game against them, but they corralled him enough. They corralled him enough for him not to be able to take over the game. Now, for me, all of that's cool, but the biggest thing right now is stopping Patrick Mahomes from being able to get outside of the pocket and create downfield, because that's when they come alive, right? When they played the Ravens, for better or for worse, they really didn't do that much offensively against the Ravens. They were struggling to score. The Ravens defense actually kept them in that game, right? It was the offense that kept sputtering out. But when they needed it, they were able to go deep downfield, and it happened off of plaster coverage and get series in and series out. Watch that Baltimore game. Those boys could not get to Patrick Mahomes. They couldn't sack him. They couldn't hit him. They couldn't get him on the ground. He bled out of the pocket. He was always getting downfield. And again, not a lot of scrambling, right? Not a lot of getting downfield and trying to kill him with yards, but keeping the play alive. And it gassed Baltimore defensively. We are going to have the game of all games from Nick Bosa, Chase Young, and my man Randy Gregory, because if they don't have the edges on point this game, what's going to happen is that they're going to get downhill with Isaiah, right, with Pacheco, and once they start getting the play action game together and Chase Young has to start getting out in space and running, I mean, that's all she wrote. It'll become a backyard game. And
Wilks said it yesterday, not to interrupt. Wilks said yesterday, the key for us is to defend, be ready to defend two plays on every snap, right? The play that they call, and then the play that Mahomes creates. Yeah, they improvised. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Because that's what he does. I mean, that's really the strength of his game. And so what does that mean? That means if you're playing zone, Mooney said it, hey, you know what? If they're playing zone and he breaks contain and he gets outside and he's starting to create outside the pocket, you're going to have plaster coverage on your guy. You're going to have to go from your zone to basically playing almost a form of, whatever you got to do. If that means
man match.
Whoever's in your area, now you're playing man, so it's like, you got to hug up on these guys and it puts a ton of pressure. And he's right. The team that plays with the best stamina is probably going to, probably win the game. As far as it's going to take the D-line to hustle. It's going to take the back-end guys to defend two plays for every play. And I think it's going to take the Niner offense, to be honest, taking away the run game and making them a little one-sided by scoring themselves. And that's, Brock said, hey, man, we got to get in the right mindset that he's like, we're really good when our backs are to the wall. But you know what? We've not started fast, and we got to get into that aggressive, we got to have it backs to the wall mindset in the first quarter instead of the third quarter.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I definitely agree with exactly the sentiment. Really, it's not stopping the plays. It's not stopping the play that's actually called in the huddle, but it's the magic of Mahomes, him getting outside of the pocket. It's exactly what I talked about with the edges. Our D-line is going to have to really cause some issues. Right now, they seem as though that they're locked and ready to go. They're saying that Tooney is going to be a game time decision, but outside of that,
he didn't practice yesterday.
Okay. Outside of that, you know, they got an offensive line, man. You know what I'm saying? Creed Humphrey is pretty much one of the best centers in the league.
Yep.
Trey Smith at right guard is a dog. And, you know, say what you want about Juwan Taylor, but he's another guy. And I kind of look at him in the same ilk as the tackle that we went up against in Green Bay, their fifth round pick, Tom.
Zach Tom.
Yeah, he's in the same ilk, nasty, but a little bit bigger, 6'5", 330, can get out and run. So it's gonna be on the trenches this game, really, because if we can't get to Patrick Mahomes, then you know Patrick Mahomes is actually known for you know not being blitzed, not being impervious to the blitz. That's what he does, right? He does not get sacked.
Yeah, and he can't, and he knows where to go with the ball. I mean, it's just you can't fool him with the blitz. I mean, Floyd the Barber says, Larry, do you think 5-man line would do against Mahomes? What do you think, Coach? What do you think of going with the 5-man surface and maybe playing some man-to-man on the back end?
I think that's what they actually are. I think that's what the Chiefs want us to do. I would go against that. They want us to get 5 linemen on the field because they want us to deplete that defensive line. They know how we're built. They understand that the strength of this defense is the wave of the pass rush. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing since 2019 and on. Our most successful defenses had a pass rush, right? The defenses that have struggled have lacked in having a pass rush and being able to stop the run, right? So, you know, for what it's worth, I need to see us be able to get home with 4. I started getting worried in the Green Bay game because it was clear from the very beginning we could not get home with 4. We had to start blitzing. Now, we're not going to have a guy like Jordan Love who doesn't necessarily have all of the reps under his belt, but we can show him things he hasn't seen before and count on him to throw against his body and give us a pick. We're going to be playing against a guy who is going to be looking at that pass rush and trying to get plaster coverage while our DBs are trying to play man match on the backside. So this is a game for the D-line. Nick Bosa is going to have to win, right? For what it's worth, I like their tackles, but Donovan Smith and Juwan Taylor are nothing to write home about as far as like upper echelon tackles, right? These guys we should get home being able to get out there. But again, the reason why they had Patrick Mahomes is because they don't need a Trent Williams, quite frankly. You know, they got Patty. We need a guy that's serviceable enough out there. We got to make them wrong in that instance. So it's going to be the game of all games from our D-line, right? We can't, and also they have Tooney in right now. Who do you know who his backup is at left guard?
It's Nick Allegretti, who played really well. I actually know Nick because I've had him on the show before.
Really?
Yeah. We had him just randomly. We had him on during the draft the year he came out. This is several years ago. And great guy. I mean, he's a Illinois kid who was a great high school wrestler, and he's kind of settled in as their interior backup. but he's been in the system for a number of years. And when Thuney couldn't go, they plugged in Allegretti at left guard. And they didn't miss a beat. I mean, it was they just dominated up front. He's a big-bodied guy. He doesn't have tons of lateral quickness, but he's strong at the point. So, yeah, he's no gimme. I mean, it's not like they have he's almost like a starting caliber player, and grades out really highly. So there's no gimme that even if Tooney can't go or Thuney can't go in that game. Allegretti looked really good. I mean, they ran the ball, against Baltimore in the A gaps. So it wasn't like they ran it.
They ran it right into that, and that's what I'm saying. When they play us, I feel like Andy Reid has learned his lesson. Remember back Philly Andy, and he was on record for saying. This is wild now, but he was on record saying that if I could, I'd throw the ball every down. Remember he said that? He's like, I'd never run the ball. If it was up to me, I'd throw every down.
Yeah, he loves to throw. I mean, they throw.
Yeah. And remember, like, even in the Philly days, with Brian Westbrook, those boys out there, like, he never had a running game. And that's what got him fired, because he didn't have a running game in the NFC East in the early 2090s. And at that time, the NFC East was one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. And everybody had a run game. And now that he's with the Chiefs and he got shit canned and he's over there, he's starting to understand that I gotta have some backs. I gotta be able to slow the game down and be able to play the same game as these physical teams when I need to. I can still get to what I need to get to, especially with Andy Reid, in my opinion. Hall of Fame screen game. Nobody runs screens like Andy Reid. The best screen game in NFL history. But I feel like they are going to slow us down. They're going to try to get us to get 5 down linemen on the field. They're going to try to get us condensed in that box because they know that Patty can make any throw across the field. Now, with us on offense, I think that for us, we need to mimic them. They need to prove to us that they can stop our run game, honestly. Because right now, to me, the strength of what they do on defense is their secondary. They have an elite secondary. Everything else kind of goes downhill after that, right? But for what they have in the secondary, we're going to have to get those boys physical. They're going to have to start tackling, not just getting in your back, not getting in your drop. We're going to have to get these boys to the line of scrimmage and feeling us physically. So I feel like this is going to be another game, almost as if we're playing the Lions again. Whoever's first to be physical and sustains it is pretty much going to win the game.
Well, I kind of like the Lions' weapons more than I like the Chiefs' weapons, but, there's Mahomes. Mahomes is the ultimate, factor because he's just such a damn good quarterback.
The X factor.
And Reed, and, and the fact that Niners have never beaten Mahomes. And, he's obviously going to bring a tremendous amount of confidence into this game. I mean, that's the thing. He believes that, he can't be beat. And since the Niners have never beaten him, it's like a hitter stepping into a batter's box against a pitcher that he's got 5 hits and 8 at bats against. 8 at bats. It's like, I own this guy. I mean, he's going to step into this Super Bowl like, hey, man, I own the Niners. I can beat the Niners with my eyes closed. I mean, he's very, very confident, but he's not driving the same car that he's driven in past years. And if the 49ers can make this a track meet, I think they could outscore them. If the Niners can get to 30, I don't know that the Kansas City Chiefs can get to 30 against the Niner D. I have my doubts, really. I think the Niner D will be able, because I think Bosa is going to be able to win consistently against Jawan Taylor. Jawan Taylor leads the NFL with 20 penalties this year. I think Bosa is going to be able to have his way there. The big question is opposite Bosa against Donovan Smith. Can the Niners rush Mahomes from both edges? If they can, I love their chances to win. If they can't, and they leave him an avenue to
all bets are off.
Then it's like, you know what? Then it's a matter of
game.
Who's going to win, Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce or the Niner pass D? And that's hard to say. Let me ask you this though. The interesting article up on Niners Nation right now, and it's written by Patrick Holloway. He says, what should the 49ers do with Steve Wilks in the offseason? And I'm on record of saying, I don't think Wilks has been disappointing at all. The Niners only give up 17 points a game. They've lost a lot of good run defenders so to me, that's why their run defense is not as great, is that their personnel against the run is not as great. But then they have a poll question here at the end, and they say, are you satisfied with Steve Wilks? And your options are yes, give him another season with a healthy roster. Option 2 is, let me see what he does in the Super Bowl. Option 3 is no, something is off, and the 49ers need to do a deep dive at the end of the season. And option 4, it's time for an immediate change. So what do you think is the leading option? What do you think? I can give you the numbers of where they're sitting votes wise. Who do you think has the most votes out of those 4? time for an immediate change. Something's off. The Niners need to do the deep dive at the season's end. Let me see what he does in the Super Bowl. Or yes, give him another season with a healthy roster.
Let me see what he does in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Definitely.
42. 42. You're right. 42% of the fans said, "Let's see what he does in the Super Bowl." 29 said, "No, something's off, and the Niners need to do a deep dive at the end of the season." 23% said, "Yes, give him another season with a healthy roster," and only 6% said it's time for an immediate change. Why?
Mm-hmm. The reason why I knew that it was going to be let us see what they do in the Super Bowl is because really what they want to do is they just want to hedge their bets to see how they want to place blame, right? If we win it and defense isn't that necessarily of an issue, winning the game, nobody wants to talk about it. But I feel like that almost, in a way, we don't like to admit what side of the bread our butter is on in a certain instance, like because we're led by an offensive coach who's very smart and he's been called a genius, and because offensively we look good and it's an offensive league, but it just doesn't feel good to admit that after all of that, after all of the names, after all of the fanfare, who's MVP, get Christian McCaffrey a touchdown every game. Trent Williams is the best offensive lineman in the league. You know, nobody can get a ball better than Deebo Samuel. Whoa, nobody can get screens better than Deebo Samuel. All of that cool stuff. It still comes back to our defense. We are led by our defense. We are a complimentary football team that is always going to be on our defense. So much so that we're even having the discussion on what to do with Coach Wilks while we're going to the Super Bowl. That's preposterous to me. That's wild, right? If somebody raised the question right now, should Kyle Shanahan be on the hot seat if we lose the Super Bowl right now? There might be a murder. Somebody might get assassinated because of that take, because it'd be that preposterous. But Wilks is a scapegoat. If you look at throughout the year, Kyle waltzed him out in front of everybody when he made a coaching blunder, when he called the zero blitz that didn't lose them the game, but it was just a turning point in the game, right? And because it was a turning point in the game, Kyle even admitted to he admitted to reporters and media, like, yeah, he knows what he did. It's always been a higher standard for the defensive side of the ball on this team because that's what leads us. That's where the money is. Jed himself came out and said it. You know, we usually don't spend super high picks on offensive guys or really spend assets in free agency on offense. And we always try to spend our money and put all of our best interest in defense because Kyle's not going to spend that much time on the ball. On that side of the ball, he's always going to be focused on the offense. So we always make sure that the best of the best is on the defensive side of the ball. Like our head coaches outside of Mike McDaniels have been on the defensive side of the ball. The culture of this team, the culture that started this team came from Robert Saleh. The sideline camaraderie, getting the entire team, not just the defense, the offense involved, all gas, no brakes. That's defense. Come on, that comes from the defensive side of the ball. Our culture from our linebacking room came from Quan Alexander, who put that in, he instilled that in all of those boys. That comes from the defensive side of the ball, all right? The guy who we pay like a quarterback, making $34 million a year, is on the defensive side of the ball. So Wilks being here right now, he came in here and he didn't even get to implement his own defense that he probably interviewed with. He came in acquiescing on his back saying, how I'm going to get this job is I'm going to go ahead and bend the knee. I'll learn the defense. I'll do it your way. Even him being a subject matter expert, all right, with head coaching experience and being a subject matter expert in secondary, when we saw our defense not performing up to the level that we should in wins. This isn't when we were losing. In wins when our defense wasn't looking good. Nick Bosa was out for the entire summer. He comes back a week before the season, and the first thing they start talking about is the front end is not matching the back end. You know, we need to get back to what we usually do. We need to get back to doing our things. He acquiesced with that, Even when we started the season, Coach Wilks, known, I call my defense from the booth. All right. That right there lets you know you got the head coach of the team on the sidelines, but they need the motivation from the first year guy. He's the guy that has to come down from the booth and get down there. And to his credit, he did it. All right. And we've seen wonders because of it. So the facts is that we're led by our defense. Our money is in our defense. The owner said it's about the defense. The team, they gaslit him into understanding, hey, no, you got to do it our way. So now when you start seeing effort issues, we can't turn around and look at Coach Wilks and say, well, what is Coach Wilks doing to get them together? No, they have let Coach Wilks know in every way, at every turn, that you are coming into something that is already built. The infrastructure is already there. This defense is turnkey. All you got to do is just show up. So now they got to show up. It's not on Wilks. He's being scapegoated. The man's doing his job. As a matter of fact, where you want to look at the emergence of Coach Wilks and what he's been doing for the team is look at Demo. Look at Javarius Ward. Look at Ambry Thomas. Look at how we've seen these boys grow in front of us. Diamador Lenore was not the same player he was last year. He's come out and said it's because of Coach Wilks. Mooney Ward has come out and said, no, Coach Wilks is my guy. Outside of what he's done for our team and who he is as a man, personally, he got me to a Pro Bowl and a first team All-Pro. So it ain't on Coach Wilks. It ain't on Coach Wilks. This was already built before he got here.
I mean, to me, and if people are being critical, I mean, what are you being critical of? Because if you're looking at where they actually rank, they're third in points allowed. I mean, ultimately, that's what it's about. It's about limiting points. They're third in the league in points allowed. They're number one in the league in interceptions. They lead the NFL with 22 interceptions. So I mean, that's his strength, is he's on the back end. You asked him to step into a defense that was going with the wide nine, that already had the structure in place, and he's done that. And on the back end, they lead the NFL with 22 interceptions. So, the question is, if they can get a couple in this game, they got a chance to win. I mean, they got a real chance to win. They're eighth in total defense as far as yards, but I'm more of a points guy than yards guy. And they're third in points. So points allowed per game. That's the thing. I mean, do you see this? When you look at these two defenses, the Niners give up 17.5 points a game, third in the NFL. Chiefs are even better than that. They give up 17.3 points per game, second in the NFL. Is this going to be a super low-scoring defensive battle?
I see it trending that way. The boys are healthy, and this is going to be, I feel like this is going to be a battle for the line of scrimmage. This game's going to be won in the trenches. I really believe it. I don't think that Kyle is wound tight, man. I don't see him coming out open, guns blazing with Brock going 5 wide. You know how we opened up against Philly, how we opened up against, who was that? How we opened it up against Baltimore, even though we had success against Baltimore. I just don't see us starting out passing the ball. We got to be able to build field position with running the ball first. I feel like that's where this game is going to be won and lost, right? Isaiah Pacheco cannot beat us. And on the contrary, Christian McCaffrey's got to have a game of his life, because I feel like that's where this is the game where I would love to see a full stable this game. A full stable. Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason. I'd love to see a full stable of backs right now, because that's where I think the problem is with this KC defense. They haven't had anybody dedicate running the ball at them. The Ravens could have beat them if they would have just ran the ball. If they stopped running the ball. Like everybody, if you watch that game, they had no issues running the ball on them. No issues. They kind of played right into their hands. I don't want us to do that to these guys. They got to prove that they can stop our running game. I don't want to get out of this game with Christian having under 20 carries. He's the leading rusher in the NFL. This is the last game of the season. Run them till the shoes fall off, bro. Like pound the rock.
No doubt. No doubt. Run the ball with McCaffrey. No question. Run it a lot in this game. If you can get to 40 runs, I'd do it.
I'd do it.
Keep the ball out of the air again. I mean, here's the bottom line. Chris Jones can ruin your day as a run defender or as a pass rusher, but they've got some nice defensive backs. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed is a real true number one corner. I'd try to run it at him. Play ball control, and then get your defense with full energy to just go after Mahomes. I mean, if you can sack Mahomes, you got a great chance to beat him. But that's really it. You got to pressure him. We saw Tampa. Tampa, pressured him in the Super Bowl, and he was ordinary. It's not like it's some magical, formula.
Yeah, it ain't rocket science.
You got to pressure him, and then he'll make mistakes. Michael Carroll says they're going to crowd the middle of the field with defense. Is Kyle capable of throwing outs and screens, or is his ego too big?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of stuff outside the numbers. Kansas City's pretty good inside. King Linner says, you trusting the grass this game will be better than last year's Super Bowl? NFL said it would be better, but I don't know. This is in the dome, but it's a grass surface.
Don't put too much paint. It's the paint. That's what it really is. It's all of that paint that they put on the field, dude. They gotta relax with that stuff. That's what makes those surfaces so slick, because you transfer all of that paint all over the field, and it creates an oil slick over the field.
Yeah, last year there were some real questions about the surface. Guys were, the Eagle players claimed they were slipping down a lot, and they had a hard time getting footing there. But it's a dome and it's a new surface. I'll say this. It's going to be a different surface than the one the Raiders were on this year, because they change out the surface. I saw the Raider field late in the year, and it looked terrible. It looked awful. They're like, wow, this is the same surface the Super Bowl is going to be played on. No, it's not. It's not. I think they've redone the field late in the year. So,
you know who manages to get it right all the time?
Who's that?
Colleges. Just go get a groundskeeper from the SEC.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Go get a groundskeeper from the SEC and just promote him, throw a boatload of money at him to just revamp all NFL surfaces, and we'd have the best fields on planet Earth. You never see these issues at Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee. Their fields look immaculate. There's, even in the rain, there's nobody slipping all over the place. There's beautiful irrigation. Like, I don't understand how NFL teams don't seem to do it. But if you look at those college fields, they never have an issue like this. Those are the most beautiful fields, better than NFL fields, hands down.
Ready, Set, Rush says, Krug, you should do a fan meeting in Las Vegas on Saturday. A little meet and greet. Maybe we'll think about that. Jose Amador says, even though we're the favorite, why is everyone in the media and better still picking the Chiefs? No one other than us fans think we can win. It's easy. I mean, the Chiefs have a really good defense in Mahomes, and they're the defending champs, and the Niners have never beaten Mahomes. That's why it's easy for people to pick Kansas City. But I think the reason the Niners are favored is the Niners were like plus 193 point differential. Kansas City was plus 77. 49ers were a better team this year than Kansas City. They had a better record. They had a better point differential. Kansas City, those hot, and they're playing well at the end of the year. So are they the team that, struggled earlier in the year, or are they the team that late in the year doesn't turn it over and looks unbeatable?
Well, let me ask you a question. Larry. From where we stand, I understand if we're looking at the Niners versus the Chiefs regular season, right? We are a better team than the Chiefs, right? We outperform them. We outdefend them. We're a better team. However, try to look at this for a 1-month season, right? So let's say as we start the playoffs, we're all 0-0. None of the accolades matter. None of the numbers matter. Whatever you've done since week one of whenever your playoffs started is where you end up. Now, gauging what the Chiefs have done since the day they started into the playoffs being 0-0, and gauging off the 2 games that the Niners have played, right? Who would you say is the better team?
Who's the better team between the Niners and the Chiefs? I would say the 49ers have an ability to score more points, but the Chiefs have some great they've got some great individual players. I mean, Chris Jones, Nick Bolton, L'Jarius Sneed are 3 really great players. So, in fact, if you ask me, I would say the Chiefs probably have more players in the top 10 overall than the 49ers do in this game. If you said who are the 10 best players in the game, I would say, who are the 10 best players in the game? I would say Mahomes, Chris Jones, Trent Williams, CMC. Those 4 would be my top 4.
Kelsey?
Do you put him next? Is he 5th?
I don't think Travis Kelce's better than George Kittle.
I don't either. And then what about Ayuk? Ayuk's an all-pro wide receiver this year. So I might go Ayuk at the 5 spot. But then, there's Creed Humphrey, who's a great player. There's L'Jarius Sneed. It's tough. It's tough. I think the 49ers are a more explosive offense, but I think these teams are very, very even, which is why you've got the 1 point spread or the 1.5 point spread. I think it's basically a pick 'em. I really do. I think Mahomes is the factor that makes you feel good about Kansas City, but then the 49er run game, should with CMC makes you feel like they're an incredible team. So I don't know. This is a very, very even Super Bowl, and I think it's a good matchup. I really do. Nees says, am I crazy that thinking refs letting them play actually benefits San Francisco? In 2019, we had the better defense neutralized by the refs. This year, Kansas City has the better defense and O-line, so swallowing flags actually benefits San Francisco. I don't know. I mean, I'll say this. Mahomes is going to be aggressive running, and if they call hits on Mahomes running, that those personal fouls are real killers. You want to see a team move. Kansas City has struggled to move the ball at times this year, but if Mahomes is going to run for 20 yards and then you're going to tack on 15 more with a late hit because he's aggressive and won't go down, and you got to really hit him, and then all of a sudden here come the flags. I mean, that could be one of the ways they move the ball. So I don't know. I think the 49ers in a lot of ways have the more explosive offense. Bomber 78, Larry, does it concern you that the same ref crew in 2019 will ref this Super Bowl? I don't know. I don't get into the ref concerns that much. I mean, I'll mention it because I think it's a talking point. But Coach, I really believe I expect this Super Bowl to be won by the better team. I'm not worried about the officials impacting this game. I'm not. I know some people are, but the way the NFL playoffs have been officiated thus far, they've been very hands off and letting him play. And I think these games, if anything, are being under officiated, not over officiated. And I prefer an under officiated game.
I disagree.
Okay.
The Ravens game, the Ravens versus Chiefs game was ridiculous as far as officiating was concerned. It was very bad.
But there was only 8 flags, right, in the whole game, right? Wasn't that 5-3 or something like that? I don't know. I have to look that up.
Well, the frequency in which flags, I mean, I feel like there's a menu of what bad officiating can look like, right? It can be ticky-tack calls. It could be too many flags, right? It could be no flags called on stuff that clearly we see, right? I would say the officiating isn't necessarily good, and we have to watch Lane Johnson jump off sides for 4 quarters, right? And they don't call it. That's bad officiating. So just the sheer number of the calls that's one way to gauge it, but just also when the calls are made.
It was
And
11. It was 8 for Baltimore, 3 for Kansas City.
yeah, and that game was pretty bad. There were multiple pass interference calls on that defense that were not called. Isaiah Likely got ran into on the pick by Lamar Jackson. They said that there was contact after the pick. You can see Isaiah Likely getting hit well before the ball falls down into the air. And then there's a ref standing right there. There was another play where Isaiah Likely runs an in cut. He comes out of it. He gets held and grabbed, gets spun out by his waist. They did not call it. Travis Kelce. I mean, I'm gonna say this now because it matters to us. Travis Kelce is a demonstrative player. He really is. He's very comfortable. All right. He talks a lot. He jabs a lot. He puts his hands in people's faces. He gets up. He taunts. He makes it known every time he catches the ball. He's a very animated player. And we're an animated team as well. All right. And I don't want the officiating getting in the middle of these boys going back and forth because I saw it in the Ravens game. Travis Kelce was basically having a midnight matinee. He was doing whatever he wanted the entire game. Flexing, doing the whole thing. Zay Flowers gets the biggest play of their game. That's the biggest offensive play of the Ravens game. He gets up, spins the ball down, and flexes over a defender that's at his feet. Boom, called. Right? There was another PI with Roquan Smith and Travis Kelce prior in that game. Travis Kelce pushes Roquan Smith in the face. He responds. They get the PI. I can tell you, this is something where I don't want to see the refs get involved. Let the boys play. Let the boys play. I saw that. Look, I'm not mad at where the Chiefs are now. Whatever. You went out, you won your game, you're in the Super Bowl. But that game was tilted. I watched that game. The officiating in that game was not on par on the same side. They did not call it even down the line. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm not going to the game. I'm watching the game just like majority of the fans in here are going to be watching the game from home. And I swear to God, if I see a ticky-tack call and a cut to Taylor Swift during that Super Bowl, I'm going to fucking lose it. All right? I'm going to lose it. All right, so I don't want this to be some fucking production on, I don't want to be fodder to the next page in, whatever the Chiefs got going on, right? Because the NFL, they get real romantic. I'll just say that. They get romantic with storylines. Let the boys play.
There you go. Keep Taylor on the sideline. Matt Wadsworth says Wilks with 4 D linemen versus goal line. Like offense constantly can't fill 10 gaps with 6 players. D-line on skates, 10 yards downfield constantly. Wilks is a problem.
Let me see that again. Wilks with 4 D linemen versus goal line like offense consistently. Can't fill 10 gaps with 6 players. D-line on skates, 10 yards downfield consistently. Wilks is a problem. All right, but hey, at the same time, you have to understand that Coach Wilks is working out of the wide 9. That's not a Coach Wilks decision. All right. So defense works from the line of scrimmage back, not the other way around. They don't call the coverage and then tell them what to do up front. So whatever
the D line being on skates 10 yards downfield is also not the defensive coordinator. That's just getting pushed around up front.
That's getting pushed around. Exactly.
That's not your D coordinator. Tommy Huxley says the 2 tackles on Kansas City are Colton McKivitz worse in pass protection. Well, I mean, Donovan Smith and Juwan Taylor have struggled all year. McKivitz has not been a strength, but McKivitz is a tough guy. All I'll say is
well against Detroit. He did well.
Juwan, he did. And Juwan Taylor, and he did well against Green Bay for the most part. Juwan Taylor's got 20 penalties. So I would say Taylor is the guy who's the weak link, and I would imagine Bosa has a field day against Taylor. But and then Noah Menahue. What's that? Noah Menahue hurts Kansas City, I think, badly. Not having Charles Menahue is a major negative for Kansas City.
It's huge. It's huge because it's in a lot of instances, it's the same thing as losing Cleveland Farrell. You get that dual You
Yep.
get that dual responsibility D lineman that can do both at a high level. They can set the edge and stop the run and rush the passer at the same time. It's a huge loss for them.
Lucian Lachance, the fourth, says, how worried should the Niner fans be about the 49er defense going into the Super Bowl? Should there be a schematic change to the defense? Should they interview Belichick for defensive coordinator? I definitely would have interest in Bill Belichick as defensive coordinator. Nothing against Wilks, just Belichick's Belichick. I don't know that he would ever take that. Kyle said he's not going to go to any kind of outside influence to try to help him in any way or help the
So he's not
defense in
taking any
way.
consulting throughout the break?
No consultants. He's going to lean on his current staff. And I don't know that the Niners defense should be worried. I just think they've got, they're depending on their team to play with some endurance. So I think in this game, it's got to be, let's be honest here. If you're going to win this game, you're going to have to play complementary football for the first time. What does that mean? That means you're going to have to dominate the time of possession, run the ball quite a bit on offense, keep your defense off the field as much as you possibly can. If you can, then I think you are likely to have them show the endurance necessary to play at the crazy speed up front, and cover Rashee Rice and Kelsey in the red zone. If you can't, and Mahomes is dominating time of possession, I think that's a major advantage for Kansas City. So
huge.
I don't think the Niners should be worried, but I do think it's time to play some complementary football and try to protect your defense from lots of minutes on the field. Ernest Sire says, apparently my watch your back Larry comment on Friday was taken the wrong way. No ill will intended, just some humor in light of the D-line criticism. Oh, I got you. Thank you, Ernest. I appreciate that. Well, I am kind of still watching my back. Ryan Crowley says, has anyone ever thought that it's Kyle and Lynch's defense? Defense gets better each year despite the coordinators just tinker here and there.
I have something to say about that.
Go for it.
So this is a great comment, Ryan, because I've raised this question as well. The common denominator with the defense is that John Lynch, and Kyle, they're the ones that picked this defense. They handpicked this defense for their team. Okay. So they brought in Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans under Robert Saleh in order for them to run this defense. However, the subject matter experts are the people who are supposed to be the ones that order it, right? They're the ones that actually put the mandate out. So in some ways, it does match up when Kyle says, we don't need to go get a consultant on defense because they're the subject matter experts on this defense. Coach Wilks, if there's anybody, Coach Wilks was given this defense to learn. So whoever gave it to him is who should be coaching him up and talking to him. And that just goes on to the next point that I wanted to bring up is that's Coach Shanahan's job. The head job of a head coach is to coach coaches. That's what head coaches do. That's their job. They coach coaches. So I would see right now that Kyle is the first person to tell you, and it's a part of his Genesis story, that when he started learning offense, he truly didn't become special until he started on the defensive side of the ball and learned defense. So if anybody should be telling Coach Wilks what needs to be done from the best position, if there's anybody that could be giving Coach Wilks adjustments, it should be Kyle, right? Kyle knows this defense.
I would say that Kyle wants to be the head coach of the offense, and I think he'd love the defense to just run itself. I think that if Wilks, is going to be here long term, he would love to never have to be involved with the defense if he could. Yeah, I think he only wants to be involved if they somehow, if he doesn't like what he's seeing. And, the effort in the NFC Championship game, I'm sure he didn't like. But how much of that is on Steve? How much is that of that is on the players? I put that more on the players than on Steve. You got to be motivated. If you're not self-motivated to play at a breakneck speed, down 14-7 in the NFC Championship game, then when are you going to play? AJ Wright says, do we see Debo return kicks? I think it's very likely he could be a kick returner. Alien D. Jin said, are we worried that their defense will figure out how to stop the quarterback run like teams did with Kaepernick? No, because I don't think the quarterback run is designed. They're scrambles. We got this one. BV50 has become a YouTube member. A little clap for BV50. James Foster, good point, coach. Mahomes is a flopper, frail. Jared McBride, why is there a lot of hate for Brock Purdy? He's fun to watch. He's playing like he's been in the league for 10 years. I don't know. I think it's just that, people, they don't like how much credit he gets. A lot of his gifts cannot be seen by the naked eye. And, you can't, what makes him a great player is just, every one of his skills is just good. Except for the things you can't see. Like, the kid's got tremendous heart. He's a crazy competitor. He's very, very smart. You can't see those things. So it's like, people are like, well, he doesn't impress me. But then you flip on the tape and you're like, wow, the ball comes out on time. He's processing what he sees. He's playing at a high level. He can run. So, I think that's really it. If he were a bigger 6'5" guy with huge broad shoulders and a gun, people would be like, oh yeah, look at him. He's great. They can see that. It's real easy. You can't see processing. And you can, if you study
you
the
can
all
if you
22.
take your time.
Yeah. But if you're just a casual observer watching on the tube, you don't see the processing. That's all lost on you. And the accuracy seems just kind of like, yeah, he throws it accurately, but it just kind of seems like, well, isn't he just throwing it to the guys? It doesn't seem overly impressive.
Well,
But
that's the last
his
thing that comes from
competitive
Brock,
fire,
in my opinion. That's
I
the
think
last thing to drop.
to me, it's his competitiveness. That's the part that's crazy, because that's the part that you see. That's why he ran in those situations, because he's a competitor, and he really wants to win. So I think he's a competitor right there with the great competitors I've seen. But skill set wise, guys throw it better. Though his accuracy is really good, but he did throw picks in college, and he'll throw some picks when he's not going well. So it's just, there are better quarterbacks, but his competitive fire, I think, is at the top of the charts. He's right there. That's what Mahomes is awesome about too. You always feel like Mahomes is going to win because Mahomes is a crazy competitor. You saw what happened to Mahomes when they lost to Buffalo. He melted down. Because he's such a winner. He's such a I gotta win guy that when he doesn't win, it's like, oh my God. You saw, he was losing his mind. He was complaining to Josh Allen about that call against Tony, which was a good call. It was just, Tony was offsides. And they've buried Tony, by the way, since. He's just a totally non-factor. Coach, I got to run because I got to coach baseball today. So we got to cut this short. But what do you got cooking the rest of the day?
We got the Faithful Review coming up with Tom Jensen in a couple of hours. I'll put out the promo for it, guys. And we're basically going to flesh out the 0-0 season. We're gonna assess the 49ers from a 0-0 perspective since they started their first playoff game. It's going to be interesting to see what they've done on the ground. What traits have they shown us thus far, right? If we're looking at the Niners for what they've done since they started playing the playoffs, this is a slow start team. This is a second half team. This is a team that struggles with stopping the run. That's consistent run game. This is a team that comes on late, but quarterback play has been a little bit spotty over the past 2 weeks. So I know it's easy for us to look at what the Niners have done throughout the entire postseason. The entire regular season. And all of those things are great. But for now, being able to look at them from a snapshot in time from Green Bay on, and being able to look at the Chiefs, not in their season, but from Miami on, will kind of give us a better light on how this game is going to play out. So it's going to be on in a couple of hours. I'm going to put it up. We'll probably be on about like maybe 3:30 Eastern time. And we'll go ahead and flesh it out. Just be able to be able to assess the Niners after the dust is settled because
Steve-
everyone's happy.
Yeah, seriously. Stephen Draper says team effort is on the head coach, not the defensive coordinator. Coach, we'll talk to you next Saturday from Las Vegas. Looking forward to
Vegas?
it, man. I'll be in
Oh,
Vegas
yo.
this week, so we'll talk
Oh.
next Saturday from Vegas.
I gotta do something special if I'm gonna be in Vegas. We're gonna be in a Vegas show. It's gonna be nice.
Have a great Saturday. Thanks to the sponsors. Thanks to all you guys. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you